Welcome. My name is Michael Hacker, and I'm a Cloud Solution Architect for Microsoft State and Local Government. In this video, I'm going to discuss VNet to VNet peering, which is a new feature recently released in the Microsoft Azure Government environment. Now, before we get started with VNet to VNet peering, it's important to know a few things. Number one, VNet to VNet peering allows you to connect two virtual networks that are in the same region together without having to go through the process of setting up a virtual private network connection like you used to have to do. So a VNet to VNet peering, as I mentioned, works in the same region. So you can't go across multiple regions. So the two virtual networks have to be in the same region. You can connect ARM-based virtual networks together, or an ARM and an Azure Service Manager, which is also known as Classic, together. Now, if you have multiple subscriptions and you are using the ARM model, you can actually have a virtual network in subscription 1 and a virtual network in subscription 2, and as long as they're in the same region, we can also peer those together. So this gives us a lot of nice flexibility when we're looking at our virtual network design. So let's go ahead and take a look at what this setup kind of looks like. So I've got a resource group that I've created already called VNet Demo, and inside that VNet Demo I have two virtual networks, VNet A and VNet B, and they're both in the US Gov Virginia region. If I look at VNet A, you can see some general information about this virtual network, including its address space. And if I go to VNet B, you'll also see the exact same thing here. And you'll notice that the address spaces are non-overlapping. So that's extremely key here, is that we have to make sure that we're not using overlapping IP address spaces, because then we wouldn't be able to properly route. So to get started with peering, it's actually very simple. There's this new option under settings for your virtual network called peerings. Now when we set up a peering, we actually have to create two peerings so that we have one going from VNet A to VNet B, and then we have to create the opposite connection, VNet B back to VNet A. That way we have full traffic control and the ability to send data back and forth. So if I go ahead and hit peerings, we see that we don't have any here, so we'll just go ahead and hit add. And we'll go ahead and give this one, this one's A to B. And I'm in the resource manager mode. I choose my subscription, and then I choose my virtual network. So we're going to start here. We're going to connect to VNet B. And then down here we have some additional configuration. One is, are we going to allow access to this? So if we disable this, then basically we have no connectivity. And as you can see, we go ahead and hover over these little tooltips. It basically tells you what these different options mean. So if we disabled this, this would disable the communication between those two virtual networks. So peering basically wouldn't be used. We can allow forwarded traffic, we can allow gateway transit, and use remote gateway. So what this allows us to do is, if we have two virtual networks that we're going to peer together and one of them has a VPN gateway back to on-premises, we can actually configure it so both of the virtual networks can actually use that one gateway to get back and forth from on-premises into the cloud. So it gives us some nice transitive routing. Now that's the only real transitive routing though that applies to peering. If I were to peer three virtual networks together, so let's say I peer A to B and then B to C, I could not communicate from A to C. So that's really important to understand, okay? There isn't a transitive routing in that way, but there is a transitive routing if you're using a site-to-site VPN or express route. You'd be able to send the data out through a gateway. So we'll go ahead and hit OK here, and it's going to take a moment for this to be created. And once this is created, we're going to see a specific peering status that's going to indicate that the peering process has started, but it hasn't connected. And the reason why it hasn't fully connected is because we need to set up the peering on the other direction. So you can see here that A to B is initiated. Now we need to do B to A. So let's go over here to B, go to peerings, we'll add, and this is going to be B to A. We'll choose our virtual network, which is going to be A in this case. And we'll go ahead and hit OK. And now it's going to add the peering going back in the opposite direction. And once this completes, and the connection is fully established, the peering status will change and will show us that it is actually fully connected. So it's going to take just a moment here. And there we go. So now we see connected. So this indicates that we have a full peering setup enabled between virtual network A and virtual network B. So what does this mean? Well, this basically means that if you have resources in the two different virtual networks, they can actually communicate to each other now as if they were on one larger network. So that's really what virtual network peering is all about, is just quickly and easily connecting multiple virtual networks that you have out in your Azure subscriptions and making it simple for them to be able to communicate with each other. For more information, always head out to azure.microsoft.com for the latest information and documents.